Mayor Lambert, members of the council. As you know, the Well 10 project is one we've been working on for some time, and we were happy to put it out to bid this fall through the use of funding through the Department of Environmental Quality State Revolving Fund Loan Program, something we've been working on for some time. The project did go out to bid this fall, and we did receive 2 bidders. Not as many as we would have liked, but sometimes that's the way it goes. The bids came in a bit over the engineer's estimate. The bid schedule, or the bid was set up with 2 schedules for 2 different sizes of wells, either a 20-inch casing or a 24-inch casing. That was done to really look at the possibilities of different capacity of well production. And depending on what kind of bids we got, the idea was to make a decision about what size of casing to proceed with and what size of well to drill. So that's why there are 2 bids in the bid schedule. We did receive 2 bids, one from Snyder Water Services of St. Paul, Oregon as the low bidder, and the other is Holt Services out of Edgewood, Washington as the second bidder. Quite a bit of difference in the bids that were received. Very interesting when you start looking at the bid tabulations that are in the packets. Subsequent to the bids, we determined that there were a couple of procedural issues that came up through the process. There were 2 things in particular that were not addressed during the bidding process that we need to correct. The first of those has to do with the prevailing wage, which is the Davis-Bacon federal wage program. And within the multitude of regulations associated with Davis-Bacon wages is a requirement that the individual decision by date be specified within the contract, saying these are the rates that you will use. There are multiple schedules, multiple decisions, and those decisions come out periodically throughout the course of the year. Our documents did not include that decision and did not include the particular schedule that should be followed. So that's one thing that needs to be corrected. A second aspect of that particular one is also that there needs to be an update presented to the bidders or announced to the plan holders 10 days prior to the bid opening process. That was a step that was also not completed. So another thing that we need to resolve in the bidding of this particular project. The other area that we found that we were deficient in the process was that the disadvantaged business enterprise process requires that we work with the state agency that deals with the disadvantaged business enterprise program, the DBE program, and notify them that we're putting a project out to bid so that they can then reach out to DBE firms within the region and say, here's a project you might want to consider. That was a step that was also not completed on our end. So because of that, or those items, and the fact that this is a project that partially or is funded through state revolving funds, which are federal dollars, means that we need to be very careful about being in compliance with all of those federal processes. And there are some obviously here that we have missed. Because of that, we then need to reject these bids as our recommendation from the staff and fix those items in our bid solicitation and put it back out on the street in a proper format for bidding again. So the recommendation of staff and request of council is that we reject the bids we received for well number 10, and then subsequent to that action, if the council chooses to do so, staff is working on re-advertising this post-haste so that we can continue with our schedule to construct this well next spring.
Okay, so there we have it. Questions for Les? John?
Yeah, Les, you're talking here about the current Davis-Bacon wage decision. So the figures that we have of $1,127,000 and $1,600,000 are those do not include wages that are in line with Davis-Bacon?
The Davis-Bacon wages are minimum wages that must be paid to a particular job classification. And in talking with the bidders, they are certainly well aware of those classifications, and as I understand it, they pay more than that. They are minimums, and it is likely that that is indeed the case. We've not seen their payrolls, so we can't say for sure, but it seems likely that as they are aware of the Davis-Bacon requirements, that they certainly would be paying that minimum or more. However, it's the process that's the issue for us, to
Okay.
make sure that we're doing it appropriately. And then once we take this back out, rebid it, then there's a confirmation process that goes on after a bid award, in which we would confirm that they are indeed paying those minimums or more in accordance with the appropriate schedule and the appropriate decision that's in effect at the time.
So we could easily end up with bids that are essentially the same as the ones that we got.
It seems very likely with the discrepancy, or the disparity, I should say, between the two bids, one being quite a bit higher than the other. I'm not sure what will happen with the second bidder, if he
Okay.
potentially would come down, or just what will happen. Obviously, this is going back out on the street, so there is also the potential of other bidders entering into the mix if they so choose.
Les, if council rejects these bids, and when will a rebid process start?
We've been working with the Department of Environmental Quality that administers the state revolving fund process. That is the agency that also has to approve the rejection and approve the rebid and approve the documents that we're using for the bidding process. They have indicated that they will expedite their review. They've already given us approval to reject the bids. They did that last week. Tentative approval to re-advertise pending review of the new documents that we got today. They will get in the morning. And then if all that works and they can turn it around here in the next couple of days, we would re-advertise this coming Saturday.
Wayne?
Quite a difference in what we estimated they should be and what they came in at, obviously. Can you have any concept, Les, why there's, especially when we're looking at the second bidder where they're 160 to 180% above what our engineering estimates were? That one sounds like they're so busy that if they're going to get it, they're going to make a lot of money. But the other one, 114, 116%, and we only had two bidders. So what do you think was the problem?
Yeah, it's a good question, and one we've pondered a bit since we opened the bids. The engineer's estimate was prepared by our consultant, Golder Associates, based on what they've been seeing in the bidding market and other bids for wells of this nature within the region. So they felt pretty comfortable with their numbers. The fact that our low bidder came in above them, to them, I think, was perhaps a bit surprising. It's not drastically higher, but it certainly is higher. The estimates that we had from Golder seemed fairly consistent with a well that for which I had some bid information out of the Lewiston Orchards here in this last year. So the numbers seemed reasonably close. As far as the second bidder, how high they are, we really can't explain it. That's something that, we've talked with them a little bit, and we're trying to talk to them a little further to see if there's something they saw that the other bidders didn't, or that our consultant didn't see. But sometimes it's a little hard to get much information out of bidders in these kind of situations.
They wouldn't say much then.
Not directly, no.
Jim?
Les, do you expect that because of the disadvantaged business enterprise advertising that we'll maybe get some bidders from firms in that group that didn't bid the first time because they weren't aware of it?
It's always a possibility. In my experience, most of the DBE firms are not on the scale of large well drilling operations. They tend to be firms that are a little bit smaller in scale. A lot of times you see like traffic control firms, things of that nature that are subcontractors to primes that are out there. In this case, there were no subcontractors for either bidder. It was just the prime. I'm not aware of any DBE well drilling outfits in the Northwest, but it's possible that they're there. I don't know them all. So yes, it could be. I would be a little surprised, frankly.
Okay, Walter?
Les, do you plan any scope of work or quantity adjustments for the rebid?
We would not be, no.
So straight up, it's basically the same bids going out.
It's the same
specs.
project, updated specifications to make sure we're in compliance with
Just
all
the
the
compliance
appropriate
stuff.
procedures and requirements, yes.
I make a motion that we reject the bids received for the well number 10 drilling project.
Second?
Okay, I've got a motion by Dan and a second by Walter to reject both bids and rebid the project as soon as possible. I'll start the roll, John.
Aye.
All right.
All right.
Aye.
Aye.
Okay. And you have it.